Good morning, dear students. I hope you all are fine. So, today we will do your poem from your book Beehive, A Legend of the Northland. So, students, this poem, A Legend of the Northland, is a ballad. A ballad is a poem narrating a story in short stanzas. So, ballad is such kind of, you can say, poem which tells us a story in short stanzas, and in the poem, all the stanzas comprises of 4 lines. So, this you can say it's kind of, you can say, ballad is a kind of folk culture, or you can say it is conveyed from one generation to another generation. So this you can say in this poem the place, you can say, Northland is written. So Northland means to say the area in the northernmost part of the earth, that is near the north pole. And legend means historic story, which you can say which is very old and has been passed from one generation to another. So let us just start reading the poem. So your first stanza is: away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few, and the nights are so long in the winter that they cannot sleep them through. So what the poet is saying in this stanza, away, away in the Northland, means poet is talking about the Northland. You can say a land near to the northern pole, where the duration of the day is very less because of its position. So you can say sun rays reaches for very less time, daytime is very less, and nights are very long. And in your fourth line, you can say they refers to the people who live in this region. So the poet says that the duration of night time is so long that people cannot sleep them through, and if they go to bed, take a few hours of sleep, and then they wake up and it is still night time. So he want to means the poet wants to emphasize on the fact that the duration of the night is very long. Then the second stanza is: where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bears cubs in their funny furry clothes. So now sledges means to say, the word sledges means to say a vehicle, you can say, that is used by the people of older times for carrying the things. And to harness means to say to tie the reindeers with the rope to the sledge so that it can be used for transportation. And the word swift means to say something, you can say, which runs very fast. Speed is called is speed is called, you can say, swift. Speedy thing is called swift. So the poet is saying that the Northland region experiences severe cold conditions, and it is a snowy area. The reindeer is an animal which is found in this polar region, and people tie the reindeers to sledges, and then the reindeers pull, you can say, they pull the sledges. And he adds that the children look like young ones of a bear, because they wear funny looking clothes made up of fur, which look like, you can say, the furry skin of the bear. So the children were also looking funny in those kind of clothes. Then your third stanza is: they tell them a curious story, I don't believe this true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Now the poet is saying that that here the word they refers to the parents or the elder, and them refers to children or the younger generation. So the poet is saying that the elders of northern, you can say, Northland, they tell a strange and interesting story to their younger generation or to their kids. The poet says that he doesn't think that the story is true, but if he tells the story to the readers, maybe the readers could learn a lesson from it, because this story gives an, you can say, gives an important message. So let us see what is next poet is saying. So your fourth stanza is: once, when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching, just as he did, you know. So now poet is talking about Saint Peter. So who was this Saint Peter? So you can say he was an apostle of Christ, a disciple or the follower of Jesus Christ. So you can say preaching means to say to teach, you can say to teach someone religious thoughts, etc., to give a religious talk. So this Saint Peter was a follower or disciple of Jesus Christ. So now the poet is saying that the story is about Saint Peter, when Saint Peter used to live in the world and went around giving religious lectures, etc., to the people, just like all the saints do. And then an incident happened, and what was that incident? Let us read. So then your fifth stanza is: he came to the door of a cottage, and traveling round the earth where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. Now, poet is saying that what happened next, that once you can say when Saint Peter was moving around, so he went on the door of a cottage, and here the word hearth means to say fireplace where one cooks food. So you can say poet is telling that Saint Peter was moving around the world giving religious lectures to the people, and he reached the door of a cottage where a small woman was making cakes, and she was baking the cakes in the fireplace. Then the next stanza is, and being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from the store of cakes to give him a single one. So faint means to say you can say because become weak, or you can say behosh ho jana, unconscious type because of hunger. So the poet is saying now, as Saint Peter had not eaten anything the entire day, so he was very hungry and was feeling weak. So he went to this woman who was baking cake, and he asked for one cake out of the many cakes that she had baked. So the next stanza is on the next page. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. Now the woman was very selfish, and she did not give the cake from her store. Instead, she started making a very small cake for the Saint Peter, and she did not want to share her things. But when she put the cake for baking, she looked at it and thought that this cake was too big to give to that person or to Saint Peter. So then the next stanza is, therefore she needed another and still a smaller one, but it looked when she turned it over as large as the first one has done. Needed means to say to make the dough from the flour. So you can say आटा गूंदना जैसे हम बोलते हैं, that is called needed. So the little you can say that little miser women, miser कंजूस, you can say the miser women thought that the cake was too big to give away, so she started making another smaller cake. When she looked at that cake, she again felt that this was you can say as big as the previous one. Again, she was not ready to give the smaller cake to the Saint Peter. Then the next stanza is, then she took a tiny scrap of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as wafer, but she couldn't part with that scrap means to say small amount. So third time she took a very small amount of dough and rolled it. The poet says that she rolled and rolled it to lay emphasis means on the fact that she was rolling the dough and making it very thin like a wafer and then baked it. But she was so greedy that she could not give that thin piece of bread to the saint. Then the next stanza is, for she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat them myself are yet too large to give away, so she put them on the shelf. So the woman reasoned that when she ate the cake, she felt that they were very small, but if she had to give them to someone, then she felt like that they were too big to give away. So she put all the cakes on the shelf of the kitchen, and she did not give any cake to Saint Peter. Then the next stanza is, then good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint, and surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. Provoke means to say cause to get angry someone, or then means definitely it's obvious that Saint Peter became angry. Then he was very hungry and was feeling very weak, and the selfish woman was not ready to give him even a small cake. So this behavior of greedy woman, you can say, make the Saint Peter very angry. Then next stanza is, and he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm. So dwell means to say to live. So Saint Peter cursed the woman and said that she was very selfish, and she did not deserve to live like a human being. So, and again he added that God had given her food, shelter, fire, etc. to keep warm, but she had become selfish for all the resources she had, and she is not willing to share any of the thing with the others. So she has no right to live like a human being. Then the next stanza is, now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all the day in the hard dry wood. So scanty means to say very little, and boring here means to say to make a hole in something with a tool or by digging. So Saint Peter cursed the women that that she would become a bird, means that Saint Peter cursed the woman and she became a bird because she did not deserve to, you can say, to be a human being. So she shall become a bird, and just like birds build their house by boring into the wood and collect very little food by working hard the entire day. So like this, then she means poet, you can say, Saint Peter cursed her and she became a, you can say, like a woodpecker. And similarly she would also work hard in the dry wood all the day and get little food and make small place for herself to live. Means the Saint Peter cursed him and she turned into bird, a woodpecker type of bird who has to dig into the tree to live and search for food. So then the next stanza is, then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. So, as soon as Saint Peter cursed the women, she did not get a chance to speak for herself, because that very moment she flew up to the roof through the chimney and flew out in the form of a bird. So, Saint Peter curse, you can say, had converted the women into a bird. Then your next stanza is, your second last stanza is, so she had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. So scarlet means to say bright red color, brilliant red color is called scarlet red. So when the women turned into a bird, at that time she was wearing a red colored cap on her head. This cap was there on the bird's head also, but the women's remaining clothes had burned and turned black in color, just like cloth. Means she now changed into bird, so there is no need of clothes, etc. So she is now turned into a woodpecker. And every country school boy has seen her in the wood where she lives in the tree till this very day, boring and boring for food. So country means to say, means belonging to rural area or countryside. So people means who live in that in countryside, even the small children who go to school, seen this kind of bird in the woods, they see that she stays there all day and keeps on digging the wood with her beak to collect her food. So whenever any child sees this kind of bird, then his elders tell him this story of that how that, you can say, lady turned into bird, and this bird is that lady. So they say that the bird used to be a woman earlier and she was very greedy, and so she was cursed by Saint Peter and turned into a bird. So they get a teaching that they should not be greedy. So I hope you should also get a lesson from this poem, that we should never be greedy. We should always have, you can say, kindly hands for others. Means we should always extend our hands for the help of others. And we should never be, you can say, so much greedy that means we should never adopt any kind of greedy nature. Instead of that, we should always be ready for the help of others with whatever the sources we have. So this is the basic idea of this poem. I hope you have liked this poem, and students try to solve the question answers given on the basis of this poem. I hope you can do that. So thanks for listening and have a nice day.